Hello, and welcome to the Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Donegan.
And today we are talking all about the anime movie of Darkstalkers from the 90s that, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I remember this thing was like kind of in a weird way heavily advertised, but to the niche audience. Like I remember like in the Viz Media kind of like comics, magazines, and things like that, I would always see these VHSs in there and be like, oh, you gotta get the Darkstalkers. It's gonna be awesome. It's dark. It's gritty. It's $29.99 on VHS for each one. You know, you're like, well, that's $130, like, or $120. I don't know if I'm ever gonna get that money.
Look at it, kids. It's got the anime version of Vampira. Who's that? Ask your parents. Also ask for the credit card. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The main reason we're doing this is because I believe it was last week, the Capcom Fighting Collection came out, which is at the end of the day, the Darkstalkers collection, plus a couple of other random ass Capcom fighting games. So,
yeah.
And I like the Darkstalkers
The
game.
Darkstalkers? Hey,
It's not-
them Darkstalkers out there!
Oi! Darkstalkers we had.
The Darkstalkers. It's one of those guys that hangs out on the docks at night and stalks around looking for prey.
That does sound kind of like an old-timey like serial killer, like, you know, like from cold cases from 1901. The Darkstalker. He would go up and strangle fishing boys.
Yeah, totally. One of those ones there. But yeah, that game and that collection kind of came out. And it is kind of cool because one of those ones that like Darkstalkers, it seems like, well, in general, Capcom sort of just kind of did that thing that like they made all these great fighting games for many years. And then for about the last 20 years, they just said, you know what, fuck it. Screw the rest of the games we make. You know what, we're just going to focus on Street Fighter and Street Fighter only. Once in a blue moon, we'll throw Marvel vs. Capcom out. But let's be honest, 3 and 4 are kind of like, they're okay. They're just okay. You know what I mean? Like, compared to Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which is almost like the pinnacle of like any fighting game, it's like one of those ones where it's like 3 and 4 are just, they're fun. They're worth playing, but you feel like there's like a sad, like lonely hole inside you that's missing each time you play it.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it, but at the same time, it was also kind of this. Even Street Fighter eventually went to 3D, so I get that. So I'm not going to totally attack it for the pixel art, even though I think like, well, it wasn't even pixel art. It was like the 2D, like, you know, whatchamacallit. Fucking by this point,
well, they're all 3D nowadays.
Yeah, they are. But Arc Studios found a way to make that cell shade fighting game look amazing. So I'm just kind of like, I'm not saying you got to outsource the Capcom versus Marvel versus Capcom, but maybe just take some hints from those guys. Look at what they're doing, and hopefully they don't have a patent on it. But that just looks infinitely better than what they were doing. But anyway, the way the game looks alone. But that said, the one thing about a Marvel versus Capcom game is, other than a collection, that's where you're going to see characters from Darkstalkers again, or shit, you're lucky with. You know, I don't know. Like, you're not. I mean, I think really Darkstalkers only pop up really, and it's usually only like maybe Felicia and Morgan. You hardly get anybody else.
No, yeah, you never see any of the other characters. Past Marvel vs. Capcom 2, I don't think you see any of the other characters. It's one of those ones. It's like there, and it's like so many other fighting games. Like, where's our, nobody ever made our Power Stone. Nobody ever made, another Rival Schools. I mean, there's just so many of these ones. Project Justice. There's all these things out there that like.
Red Earth is fun, but that's also like, you play that game, because I played it for the first time on the Capcom collection, and the first time you play it, it's like, this is a fun game. This is very much the first game, though. It would be cool if they could expand upon this and move forward from there. But they only made maybe they made more, but I only see this one.
That's it. That's the only one. Because those one things, when I got that collection, it was like one of those ones I flipped through. I'm like, it was another one of those moments where it's like, I own all these games multiple times over. Oh, whatever. Here's another version. Why not have one more, copy of it? It's that sort of thing. That happens to me so many. That's why I haven't bought Sonic Origins yet. I'm like, for $45, like, let's be honest, I own these games 10,000 times over, and it's not saying that I wouldn't buy it, but there's sometimes at the end of the day, it's like, how many copies of it do you need? And it's not saying that. I see that the one I thought was kind of cool about having the Capcom collection is then you can play Darkstalkers online. that right there in itself is kind of the selling point, because I don't think any of the other versions that they released throughout the years are online anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'll say the one thing about the Sonic Origins thing, even though they still totally, overcharge for that thing. At least, okay, I know you can do this in some mods and cell phone versions of the game, which a lot of them they took off the market for this game. But you go, okay, in this game I get to play as Knuckles, I get to play as Knuckles as Sonic 1, Tails through Sonic and Sonic CD or whatever. But at the same time, it's not, they really overcharge on that fucking thing. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm like $45 or have to unplug something to plug my Wii in to play Sonic Mega Collection whenever I want to play that.
Yeah.
Fuck it, $45, whatever. I'm too lazy.
Yeah.
I'll pay $45 because I'm lazy. Shit.
And I'm not saying it's not worth it. I definitely think it's one of those ones where it is cool to have, especially one of those ones, if you don't own those games over 10,000 times, then like it definitely is worth it. Like that is a stellar collection. You'll get your money's worth out there. But it's so many of those ones where it's like, I kind of like, when I flip through collections, when I buy them again, it's just like, oh, kind of forgot how many of these games I already had and how many times I have them multiple times. I mean, it's the same thing with the Darkstalkers. It's like, got Darkstalkers on Dreamcast, got it on PlayStation, got it on PSP,
I have a PSP collection, yeah.
Yeah. It's funny how, the other thing I was thinking about, like, is that Darkstalkers PSP, that was a launch release game, which is kind of weird to think, but like that was like a game to be like, hey, we're selling PSP with Darkstalkers. Is like, that's one of the big games to go with it.
Yeah, and this is a franchise I never really got too into, but I always enjoyed it. And being a Capcom fighting game, I always love the character designs and the way it looks and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I always feel like it's, Street Fighter's less popular cousin, kind of. It's kind of like for me, it probably would go Street Fighter. As far as like I don't know. As far as Capcom fighting games go, it's probably Street Fighter, and then like, in all honesty, Power Stone. And then Darkstalkers, if we're going in actually Marvel vs. Capcom right behind.
Well, yeah, but there's Marvel vs. Capcom, or another one for me is Project Justice. That's the other one I love so much.
Yeah, there you go. So maybe like Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom, Project Justice, Power Stone, Darkstalkers. That seems like doesn't seem like it's kind of a low end of the list, but I always have fun whenever I play it and I like it. I just didn't really get as engaged with the world as I did other games. However, jumping onto this, so I'm not gonna lie. Kind of my own fault here. I recommended we do the OVA. I'm guessing we already are kind of on opposite sides of the spectrum here of how we feel about this.
Well, this is one I've wanted to do for a long time. It's literally been on my like movies to pod on kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm like you. This is one of those things where I would see it in ads everywhere, and then I would also, every time I went to a Borders, rest in peace, or like a Barnes and Noble or a Suncoast, rest in peace. Actually, no, Burn in Hell. Suncoast.
Yeah, it is. It's Burn in Hell of Blockbuster and soon to be GameStop. Yeah.
So every time you eat it, they would always be sitting there, and there'll always be that poster of Dimitri with his arm around Morgan, like, So just like, okay, and there's that jerk off Johnny guy we always talk about, and that always could lie to you about like in Pokemon everyone fucking dies, or whatever. He's just like, it just happens that way in Japan. Like, okay, cool. Wow, Japan's fucking hardcore that way, I guess. He told me one thing's always stopped me from checking it out. He's just like, yeah, fucking the vampire, like Morgan and Dimitri, like Dimitri's her father. I'm like, that's a weird ass cover. Yeah, it's fucked up. So now it's like he's like pushing this incest porn like narrative. So that was one thing. Like, I don't know if I'll get into this right away. If I gotta, So seeing that cover was the thing pushing me away for a minute.
Yeah.
Like, I like Darkstalkers, but what's gonna happen in this? And then I'm like, oh, he was fucking lying, just like he was lying about how in like Gundam Wing Endless Waltz, when Hero goes and finds the body of the puppy, it's all mangled and the little girl's head's missing, just like he liked about that. So
I like how it's like 25 years later you're still like, that fucking guy, jerk off Johnny, he got me again.
I figured he was lying by this point, but it's one of those things like, all right, JJ, let's see what you got.
Yeah, just another tally there and so on. Well, one thing that's also kind of just saying about the game really quickly too about Darkstalkers is it's almost kind of the one too that Capcom uses their experimental game to be like kind of like, in a sense, I'm gonna say modern as in the 2D section of fighting games. Now, obviously nowadays, but this is quite old, but that's the very first one after Street Fighter 2 to kind of make that new style that like played throughout like the late 90s and into the early 2000s, because Darkstalkers really predates Street Fighter Alpha, and I want to say X-Men Show on the Atom, and that's all the kind that kind of took like that, like, hey, we're gonna kind of have the hyper speed, the really well animated looking visuals, and all the cool 2D stuff, and so on. That's like the start there that leads into all the other games. Like it almost creates that, in a sense, base model that Marvel vs. Capcom and all that kind of stuff is based on. Until they changed the 3D.
Yeah, well, aside from the health bar system, Marvel vs. Capcom plays more like Darkstalkers than it does Street Fighter.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say like, because Street Fighter still is a little bit more, I guess, like it's not as fast paced, even like in Alpha and all that stuff, in Alpha 3. It's still a little bit, I guess you would say, slower than Marvel vs. Capcom or that kind of series. You know, but like where you play, like when you play Darkstalkers 1, it's like, oh, it's just as fast as ever. And that's a 1994 game. It's weird to think this game came out when there wasn't even a PlayStation yet.
Well, it's weird. I was doing I was watching a video on just like the history of Capcom releasing certain games, and Marvel vs. Capcom actually, and it was weird hearing like the evolution of how it all happened, and how the PlayStation version for a while would be like the muted version. Like it wouldn't be a tag team when you played on PlayStation just because it couldn't handle two characters in the team like that. It would be, that's why in that version there was assists or whatever. So it's just kind of weird when you hear about the limitations. Like they're 2D, they're pixelated. I don't see what the fucking problem is. But I guess just back then they're just the shit that wasn't readily obvious.
Well, see, and that's why, like, because I remember when growing up, like, that's why the Sega Saturn versions were always the ones, because Sega Saturn had, like, the extra RAM chip that you could plug in the back that looked like literally in the back of the Sega Saturn, it looks like you should be able to plug a Sega Genesis cartridge in there. Like, I feel like there was such a missed opportunity right there. But that's where you plug in, like, that RAM card thing, and then it had the extra speed, and that's what made, like, all, like, the 2D fighting games were way more superior on a Sega Saturn over a PlayStation. And that kind of thing was like that what gravitated people to that, where, you know, I mean, it's not like the PlayStation version. It's not like you're missing like a whole lot. It's like, it's just toned down just enough, you know? I mean, the Dreamcast kind of is where it's all at the end of the day, but.
Yeah, Dreamcast was, Sega I think was always better with fighting games for that.
Yeah.
Now, I guess going into the movie. So this was one of those things. I'm not going to go in like, I'm just getting this out of the way for spoilers ahead for this thing. I didn't go in like impress me or I have the highest expectations or standards for this movie, but I did go in like I like Darkstalkers and I like 90s anime, and OVAs usually means there's a little extra bells and whistles, a little bit more quality to the animation, so I was looking forward to it. I wasn't like, you know, I didn't have the world's highest expectations, but I didn't exactly have low expectations either. And even after all this, I don't hate it. But I definitely don't like
it. I feel like the last 6 months has been like every single movie we go into, I'm like, man, this movie's great, or something like that. Or it's pretty fun, at least at the end of the day. And then it's like, it's okay. It doesn't really impress me. You know?
Oh, don't make me out to be like, oh. Well, here's the thing.
Johnny just built it up so hard. You know, I was expecting like, you know, some weird shit to happen.
I was really hoping for some some fucking like incest porn halfway through this. He really fucking let me down. No. All right. I just don't suck the dick of everything that gets thrown in front of me. Okay. I just don't love everything I fucking watch. That's all it comes down to. The thing with it is, it's like, all right, is the animation great? Yes. The character design is great. Yes. The action scenes, are those pretty good? Yeah, they are. How many action scenes are there in this 2 hour and 48-minute movie? Because you put all those episodes together, how many action scenes are really in it? And are there more action scenes, or are there more people fucking talking in a drab, dreary environment, and we get the same information presented to us? Some cases twice, some cases 5 times. Sometimes they got to mention it every time the same character comes on the fucking screen.
Well, I do think that, like, when it comes to, like, I guess if you're watching the OVA in Japan when this came out, there probably was a space between these, like, episodes. So they kind of had to I think it's that there's a difference when, like, you watch all, 4 of them at once, like a giant movie, and you're like, hey, what the heck? They're kind of repeating themselves here. I'm like, well, they kind of had to repeat themselves because maybe this thing came out, like, every week or something like that. And, people forget in that time period. back in the olden days where if you didn't tape it on VHS, you just didn't get a copy of it right away.
Well, just to have a little recap thing, they literally have the same scene twice. They have a scene where it's just like, oh, hey, sis, remember that time our mom died? Right, that was fucked up. Yeah, I know. Here's a quick little 3-minute flashback of mom dying. Fuck, yeah, that was sad. Cool. Hey, so it's the next episode. I know we just talked about mom dying, but you know what we need? 15 minutes set aside to build up to mom dying, that same scene we saw. So it's like they walk down this long, they're in China somewhere, and they're walking down hey, so you guys are sorcerers, right? Yeah, so you can fix this Pyron prick who's been fucking with us. Oh yeah, we can totally knock him out. Cool, just want to know, we got high expectations for this shit. Oh, don't worry, we're gonna fucking deliver. Though, you know what? Mom's probably gonna have to die. What? Mom's gonna have to die? Yeah, mom's gonna have to die. I know we talked about this in the last episode, but mom's gonna have to fucking die. Okay? So now we just gotta have this big prelude of the action that doesn't fucking matter. People we're never gonna fucking see again. And then, oh, here's the greatest hits. Mom dying, sacrificing herself for the fucking comet or whatever.
Yeah.
And we have that. And then when Pyron, at some point I'm I looked at the art, the Frankenstein dude's in this, the creature of the Black Lagoon thing is in this.
Yeah.
Sasquatch is in this. Those are characters I like to play as, and I'm not just doing this because these are characters I like, but I imagine fans of the game like to see these characters. Oh, well, those are characters from the game. Cool.
Yeah.
Naturally, if they're in the arts, they're going to be in this. Oh, they're in the intro, but they're in it for maybe 20 the intro, and then maybe 15 seconds at the beginning of the last episode, we're going to see Pyron fucking destroy them and not even say their name or even hear them talk. So it's why the fuck are we watching a movie that has so many interesting characters and we're focusing on politics of a world? Because that's what we play fucking fighting games for. We play fighting games for fucking politics. We see game. I'll stop. I'll let you talk for a minute.
Oh yeah, no, I know what you mean there, because I thought that, because I remember watching the intro. I'm like, okay, cool, they're gonna have all these characters in here, because I think the one thing that makes Darkstalkers kind of neat is it's literally kind of like an alternative Castlevania, or an alternative, Universal Monsters
only if it was of an anime kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, that's the same thing what Castlevania is too. At the end of the day, it's just Japanese versions of that, and. Because so you got all these cool characters like the Merman guy and the Frankenstein's monster, and the Sasquatch guy, and all these things. And the thing is kind of weird is they just don't, they have them there in the credits and they don't really focus on them. And the other weird thing too is Morgan's actually barely in this, which is kind of odd when you think about it. She's in the first one for I don't know, it felt like 7 minutes maybe. And then you don't see her for 3 more episodes. And then she comes back sort of in the end. And I just thought that was that's kind of that's it for you're in a sense, but maybe I don't know, is it, at this point did they realize that how big of a character Morgan would be legacy wise, because that's sort of I don't know if that's just Capcom that keeps her around longer than anybody else, but that's the one character that feels like she's the Ryu of the series in a sense.
Yeah, well, she's I wasn't sure if because I'm no expert. Here's the thing, I'm not going in and trying to pretend to be an expert on Darkstalkers or Night Warriors, depending on your region. But at the same time,
or Vampire Hunter or whatever.
Yeah, the game
10,000
Vampire Savior. Yeah, whatever.
It sounds weird that this is one of the few times where Americans were like, "Dude, no. Why is Darkstalkers your B title? That's the title right there. Vampire Hunter. That's so generic. Just call it Darkstalkers. That's badass."
Yeah, and the whole thing with it as it goes on. So yeah, I was gonna say, I always assumed. I wasn't sure if anybody who was the main character. I know Morgan was always a little bit more anti-hero-ish, but it's same time it's a universe of monsters and creatures. So the main character is a bad guy or an anti-hero because she's a succubus or whatever. I never assumed Donovan to be the main character. Maybe he always was, and I just didn't know that. All that said, though, the whole thing with Morgan, because they do make it out to be okay, whether she is the main character of the series or not, at the very beginning, they open up and like, okay, so she and Dimitri have like ancestral blood feud going on. Okay, that could be cute. That could be cool. Whatever. And then and Dimitri's like, yeah, I got my ass kicked and I wanted to control the demon world, so I'm going to do whatever I want. And Morgan's like, oh, well, just because it's, tradition, we're going to fight. And then we have that fight. It's cool. We don't really come back to it after a while. And then Dimitri, and then like they both fuck off. They might come up in for a minute. And I thought there was going to be something kind of like, because, they show these old nobles and demons like, where is the princess? Where is the princess? What is she doing? I thought some Jasmine shit was going to go down or whatever. Where she's off like battling. Like, you were supposed to be doing your princess royalty bullshit, but here you are battling a werewolf. Like, I thought it was going to be something kind of like that. But it's like, I'm just going to go off doing here and going there. It doesn't fucking matter. It's whatever, guys. Come on, And then she fucks off. And then at the very end, they're like, well, the demon realm thinks that someone should stop Pyron, but we're not going to do it. You, Morgan, you do it. Okay. Does she? No. Does Dimitri? He tries. He gets bitch snapped.
He gets ass whooped.
And then what do? We go, okay, yeah. It's just... It brings up all this. It brings up all these plot points. It does fucking nothing with them.
Well, because I will say, like,
it's time to it. Sorry, go ahead.
Is like that. I wanted to see way more of that Morgan stuff because I think the idea of her like having this castle and having all these like old summoner looking guys with their horns and whatnot out there, like that right there, I felt was like there was something really going on there, and it's the one of those ones. I mean, once again, maybe when Morgan was originally put in there, he's like, whatever, she's our Chun-Li character, like not the main character, in the very first one. And as time went on, they're like, oh, people really seem to gravitate towards her. Maybe we'll start putting her on the front. You know what I mean? But in this one here, it's like I feel like that starts up with that, and as I said, this starts going in and focusing on other characters and never coming back to it. Well, like it either needs to do one of those ones where you just give everybody their time of day and just kind of have a rotational like 6 different stories going on at once type thing, or 5 different stories, like one of those ones. Like that almost would have been kind of like an interesting way. So you just kind of keep going back and forth, and then they sort of intertwine with each other and what have you there. Because it's like the core concepts there. I mean, and I'm going to give this, I think back in the 90s when they made these fighting game movies, Street Fighter 2 is like kind of like the pinnacle of them all. That's like the one that kind of hits hard, knocks them out well. I'm nostalgic for many of the other ones. They're not like, I'm not saying they're like the greatest one. I think it's a time period where you just didn't have you just didn't have video game movies really for that much. So like every single one you got, you were kind of grateful for. And 2 is also at the time in America where just anime was just super hard to find. So like all these things kind of have more of a legacy. And even though I never really watched the Darkstalkers one until just recently, because that was just one of those ones that just sat there at its high VHS like price tag and just had that looming mysteriousness of like one of these days, it's one of those ones that it had that kind of like, it still kind of has that like, it could take me back. But I will say like, yeah, it does kind of like miss sort of on like focusing on some of these characters a little bit more. Because like, yeah, it focuses really hard on Donovan, which I guess maybe he was supposed to be the main character all in all originally, because he's the half vampire hunter, half vampire. He's like the Alucard, I guess, of the group there. And he's got to battle with this and so on. And then he finds the little girl that's always there. Like when you're playing the game, she pops up just like when you defeat somebody. You're like, huh. Because a lot of times, like, this is one of those ones, Darkstalkers, other than playing the game, I mean, you get those, like, little clips when you're playing the arcade, but, like, that's all it kind of is. It's like, you sort of need these movies is what fills in the blanks. Like, that's a lot of times with Street Fighter. I think why I like Street Fighter, if Street Fighter had no movies or anything like that, I might not actually like Street Fighter nearly as much. I think I like it so much because I really, like, enjoy the characters and the stories and the backgrounds and all that kind of stuff when it comes down to Street Fighter 2, when it comes down to Street Fighter V series, when it comes down to the Street Fighter comic books, which makes you kind of go, I would like to see what those Udon comics are, because those might be the really dialed in ones for the Darkstalkers.
I wouldn't mind checking those out. I actually have the first volume of Street Fighter versus Darkstalkers, and it wasn't like from what I read, there wasn't a whole lot of story going on. But it was just kind of like, here is Street Fighter characters have been transported to the demon realm, and they're in weird, like, like Sagat and Chun-Li, 2 people who'd never thought they'd have to work together, have to work through like some demonic forest and fight off, like, I don't remember what character, but just these weird mashups and these weird team ups of characters, and that's all it was, and that's all it needed to be, and it was really fun. And even like one of my favorite characters, Raptor, he is like. Now here's the thing. It sounds like I know I was just kicking this thing in the balls for a minute, but when it started, I didn't initially dislike it because the animation was cool and it had some interesting setup. I'm like, well, it's the first episode, it's got to do this. And then it just kept on lingering and lingering. And by episode 3, I realized that's all this fucking thing is going to do. It's just fucking lingering. And then occasionally they're going to have a fight. And occasionally at the action, when it happens, it's cool. But for being a fighting game and you only have so much, for being a fighting game and for being something that's 2 hours and 48 minutes, when you put it all together, it really takes its sweet fucking time and only tackles a couple of the characters. And I know not every character can have as much focus as, say, Donovan or I forgot her name, but the monster lady, the
Chinese one with the big hands.
Yeah, I forgot her name. They all can't get that level of attention. I understand that. Well, why are we repeating the same? Why are we spending so much of that time repeating the same information and focusing on characters that aren't nearly as interesting and keep on showing like, you know what? Maybe humanity does deserve it. Like, well, it does deserve a second chance. Like, from what you show in this, aside from one doctor who's like, I feel bad for the cat lady, and like the child.
Well, like what was that? That doctor's just like, no, Felicia, stay here as long as you want. You're still sick. You must lay down in the bed here. Come stay at my house. I already got a divorce. It's okay. You can stay here as long as you want.
You don't need to stay on the fold-out couch. I mean, you can come in the room. It's cool. It's cool. I'll stay on this side of the bed. Promise.
Yeah, exactly. But we might have to do some midnight checkups.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, were you coughing? Were you cough? Yeah. No, it only gets darker from there. Like that part right there. Like, aside from one nice doctor and a very sad child with no eyebrows, it seems to like have this like every human in this fucking sucks, and like maybe humanity does have a chance. Like, well, everyone's like, hey, it's a child. Child has powers. We got to kill the fucking child. That way more monsters come by.
But there's like that guy sneaking up behind the kid with like a crowbar, but like, you know what? Just gonna go for it. Just one whack across the head. I always wanted to kill a kid. Here's my chance. If it's a Darkstalker, it's not real people.
Yeah. I probably know I'm stopping some Exorcist shit from happening. So let's make it happen, you know? And then there's the one, like, you know, I was like, if you were gonna kill a kid, why don't you kill the, like, there's the part where they have the rich family pull up and they steal the fucking, like, like, who's this stupid fucking doll? I don't need this stupid fucking thing. Just chucks the doll into the fucking water. Like, smells like poor people, you know? So it's like...
And I feel like the build that was even because they're like, everybody's like, we gotta get out of here. The Darkstalkers are coming. We gotta get on a boat. And it shows us one boat, and it's like, it's jam fucking packed. We can't fit anybody else. We're already overweight. There's people just galore on it. And then these rich people are like, let's see here. Oh, out of the way, heathens. We must get on our own personal boat here because the kids don't like to have crowds on there. That's why we're doing it.
There's that, yeah.
And then, like, it's like, club those guys right now. You know what I mean? You guys can get yourself. You guys all could be on the next boat now instead of waiting for later.
Yeah, and if there's a kid you're gonna kill the kid that took the poor child's doll.
Yeah,
you know, you take an orphan's doll. Why the fuck should that kid get away? And then there was like what else? Like, what was the other example of humanity? Like, I mean. It's one of those things. Keep in mind, please, no one take this phrase out of context. But I kind of thought it was funny how like rape hungry any guy in the bar was. The one girl, the Chinese vampire girl's sister is leaving. They're like, hey, why don't you stay? Why don't you stay? It's one thing for one guy to be all kind of like, hey, come on, just stay. And then like every other guy is like, hey,
what's going on? What's going on? Like it just felt like, hey, Bob's out there right now. What's he always talking to a lady? What? All our wives left. You know what I mean? Like. Because they made something, they're like, yeah, all the women got taken away at some point. I don't know if it's by like the Darkstalkers or they just are like, shit, you guys go down the bar every fucking night. You get super hammered. You fight each other. Then you get a big gay huddle at the end of the day, you know, and then come back home, shit and piss all over the front lawn. And then you expect me to clean it up once again.
it's bad enough cleaning up, like, have you ever tried to clean up shit, piss, and cum mixed together?
Yeah.
Believe it or not, Febreze doesn't get that out. Just gonna say that.
Just because the ad says it does, it doesn't.
In the fine print. Mr. Clean just backs away. Like, no.
Mr. Clean's like, whoa.
Some jobs aren't made for me, all right? Some jobs are too much, even for me. The thing is, though, it's what I find funny about that scene is it's like one guy does it, maybe a second guy does it, maybe a third guy does it. Then you think there'd be one guy like, hey, man, hey, don't. Rape's bad, okay? Rape's bad. Just don't. And these guys, it's like, hey, if one of us gets fucked, it's like we're all getting fucked. Come on, team. Let's make this a bonding experience, fellas. And they don't
like 30
kill these guys. They don't kill them. They just knock the fuck out of them. Like, no, murder these motherfuckers.
Yeah, it's just 30 guys with nothing better to do at the bar. You know what I mean? Just hanging out. Like, oh, we're just gonna circle jerk each other, but now there's a lady here. Oh, whoa.
You can bury her on the car. Circle jerk now.
She can't escape all of our goo.
Yeah.
I'll show you my Darkstalker.
Oh God. Brings me means the word. Yeah.
But yeah, I know. There's that kind of. It's like the miscellaneous random scenes that have nothing to do with anything.
Well, then it's also
much more enjoyable ones.
Well, at the end of the day, like there's so many things you can do. And keep in mind, this is coming from someone who does not know much about Darkstalkers lore. But there's like so many things you could do with this. I mean, I know it's overused, and a lot of people would say it's kind of cliche. But if it works, go for it. 7 Samurai, this motherfucker.
Yeah.
Just a town's getting attacked, and you have different characters from the game have to come together to agree whether it's for a good reason or selfish reasons to protect the town, and then you get bad guys coming in. So I don't know,
Yeah, I mean, because you have all this stuff. It's like almost like all the materials there. It is definitely. It's one of those ones that I also think this movie probably still, it's like that kind of thing that probably would have done better is just a straight up movie like Street Fighter 2. Just make it like an hour and 40 minutes or something like that. Just, even if we're just working with the footage you kind of had, you could probably just tone it down into that and just kind of have it there. Because sometimes that's like that weird thing when it's like you do the extended OVAs where it's like, okay, well, it's not really a TV show yet, but it's still kind of in like a halfway almost movie kind of, yeah.
I just don't think fighting games, like things based off fighting games, should not be a slow burn.
No, they got to be action packed because fighting games are like, sometimes people always used to say that like, oh, fighting games aren't good for story. I'm like, no, fighting games have great stories in them. Like every single one of them pretty much does. It just depends if you use it or not. You know what I mean? And Street Fighter's always been pretty good where it's like they're pretty dialed in and getting those kind of going and so on like that. Certain other ones, depending on what they are, like, I guess once again, I got nostalgia for like the Tekken movie and like, the Fatal Fury ones and so on like that, even if they aren't always perfect, but Well,
there's even this thing about like, I think fighting games were, even though like, let's see here. I think fighting games really are kind of like a great, like if you say, I need you to make me something that's going to be as good as Sonic the Hedgehog. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at, all right, what fighting games? Because there's already so much. I feel like Street Fighter, it's doable. Just they haven't focused on the right aspects of it. And it's just very simple. You could have maybe 4 characters you focus on, and then they bump into other characters, and don't make it like a quick little, here's this character for like a cameo. Like actually make, all right, if the character is going to be in it briefly, just give them a fucking badass action scene. Make everyone happy. Don't let it be this throwaway moment. They're like, hey, at least he was in it. No, give him a fucking real fight scene. And this thing right here, I feel like you could do that. And I'm not going to lie, when it started off, I was feeling this. I'm like, well, the first one's going to be a little slow. They got to explain everything. But then just, like, for instance, like, the opening scene with Raptor and Felicia, that was fucking cool. Like, the idea that, like, Raptor is like, hey, man, I'm just, like, I'm a dead rock star. People still come see my show, so I'm that fucking awesome. And then he's like, hey, who's ready to rock? Like, I don't fucking hear anybody. What's wrong? Come on, guys. And then all of a sudden he's like, they're all a bunch of like demon hunters in robes ready to kill him. Like, so it's like that. Game on, bitch. And they start kills fucking everybody. And Felicia helps him out. I'm like, this is going to be fucking awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great fucking scene. And there's even even though it's kind of campy, there's some fun lines in there. And then Raptor is never seen again. Felicia fucks off.
No, he just till the last episode, so she's gone forever.
And what happens with Felicia? She's like, "Oh, I'm just trying to do my whole cat show where dudes pay to watch me do cat shit. I don't know what it's fucking. They pay to watch me squat in a litter box.
Yeah. It's one of those ones like I was really like, what? I just need to know what is this theater act going on. I just, I mean, you
see a big litter box. That's all you see."
Well, she does have that litter box special, like in Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
So it's like
where she's like kicking back dust and everything. Like, yeah, it's just one of those ones where it's just like, because that character is one of those ones. Like, even when I was a kid and the very first time I saw Felicia, I always thought, like, there's something just weird about this character. Like, that's like one of those ones. I mean, like, you get it. It's like one of those ones. It's like this kind of almost like, I don't know, just that creepy cat fetish type thing or something like that. But it's one of those ones. I always feel like I look at it like there's something just bizarre about this character that always kind of throws me off. I'm not saying it's a bad character. I'm just saying it's something that.
It's kind of like, all right, well, you look at characters from Darkstalkers, like Dimitri, vampire. Morgan, succubus, but like, succubus is supposed to be sexy, so okay, whatever. Yeah. You look at Sasquatch, okay, Sasquatch, Bottomless Snowman, whatever. The fucking like merman guy, like, okay, he's a merman, he's like creature Black Lagoon, whatever, okay. Everybody I can kind of look at and figure out what's going on with them, what their gimmick is.
Like good old BB Hood.
BB Hood, Red Riding Hood, but a fucking badass. Cool, whatever.
Yep.
And then you get to Felicia, just like cat fetish. Well, is there like werecats in lore? Maybe, but we don't fucking know if there are. Some dude really wanted to draw a hot cat girl. I was saying because like it's weird because she's not a character I hate or dislike or anything, but I mean, we know why Morgan's there.
Yeah.
Definitely know why Felicia's there, though.
Yeah. It's one of those ones. It's kind of weird because it's like, but the thing about Felicia is almost like one of those ones, like there's no other characters really like that. It's like, it's just like a one-off kind of character in there. It's not like one of those ones where it's like, hey, that's actually what the game is based on, is half the characters are like these kind of like, fetish characters. Like, no, not just that one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the same time, who knows? Maybe there's somebody, maybe there's some, you know what? For all I know, maybe there is some kind of cat girl thing in Japanese lore that I don't know about. Maybe. Who knows? But
yeah, exactly.
The thing with her though is because she's meant to be, of all the Darkstalkers, she is the more nicer, more kinder, sweeter one. That said, though, she also is. They didn't really give her anything to fucking do because she's like, hey, these assholes are scaring away my show, my cat litter show, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
And then she gets captured. And then she's like, well, I'm going to try and help people. Like, we don't want your fucking helping. Like, oh, well, I fucking tried. Then the wolf man comes in. And I always like the wolf guy. I always think that's kind of like I think that's an interesting team up, the wolf and the cat. And I always think that's kind of cool because that's always like that character. And then he's like, well, I helped the escape and I'm out. So fuck off. And that's it. That's all he's there for. So, and then Misha, I mean, we just saw the side thing of what she had going on that had no bearing on the actual story.
Yeah. I mean, I will say at least the wolf guy does get a little bit more than some of the other characters.
Yeah.
I mean, he at least gets like 10 minutes or something like that. It's not much, but it's at least something there. Because I will say, like, because that's the thing is there's points where it does kind of pick up. I mean, I will say it's that kind of one that it's generally like that thing of like when you have things that are a little bit longer than they probably need to be, where it could be just summed up. It's not saying there's not enough Darkstalkers stories that you could tell. You could tell a whole 26 episode series, I mean, I'm still kind of interested to see what that American version of Darkstalkers is. Like, that's one of those ones, too, that's always been on that list of things that'd be kind of fun to watch. Because that's such a bizarre choice of, like, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do American cartoon. Well, I mean, I know why they probably did. They probably like, hey, we did the Street Fighter one. That did kind of good. What else does Capcom have? How about we grab Darkstalkers? We'll do that.
Well, it's kind of weird when you think about it because there was a Mortal Kombat cartoon, and
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat was violent as shit. But I guess it's kind of weird to me that Darkstalkers. I think if Darkstalkers took off and was more popular, that cartoon and the game would have got more shit from like Tipper Gore and whatever kind of like Soccer Mom, Paragon, or whatever, you know?
Yeah. Well, because that's the thing about it is like, because it's one of those ones like Mortal Kombat's clearly like a mature rated game, and Darkstalkers is technically like a teen one, but it's like you could just see that it's like it's got all this almost like demons and vampires and all this stuff that's just going to scare all like the the heavy Christians and all that kind of stuff really easily. But I think it's just that game stayed just under the radar enough. Because it's like you have to sell a certain amount before you get like on the radar of that. That's why like Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2 really kind of nothing really happened there until 3 came out. You needed to be in everybody's hands for it to be a problem.
Well, even if you kind of look at a lot of their characters, because when you think about Darkstalkers, look at a couple of the characters like, ooh, there's a scary wolf man. Ooh, there's a spooky zombie man. Ooh, look at the fish man. Isn't he spooky? Ooh. And then you get to like, oh, look at the cat girl. Oh, look at the succubus. Look at the honeybee. So it goes on. I think at a first glance, people are like, oh, it looks good. Spooky little monster mash thing. Isn't that cool, kids? And then it goes on like, oh, Timmy, avert your eyes. You don't want to go to hell, do you?
Yeah, exactly. Don't you know that's her father she's got her arm around?
My neighbor told me.
Yeah, old Johnny down the street, always catch him jerking off. Fucking little jerk off bastard.
Just walks by, stand there at the window, just beating it with a fucking like Ron 1.5 VHS in his hand, waving at me.
Yeah, just yelling out facts. I assume they're facts. He looks like a well-educated kid. He's always carrying a book around.
Granted, that book is tips and tricks, but still.
And it's just the code section. But yeah, it is that one that I think that I think there's interesting stuff in the Darkstalkers OVA. That's the thing I'll say. It's like I think like the overall, yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's like it's not a Street Fighter 2. It's not like other kind of like anime kind of ones like that. But there's still just something kind of interesting and nostalgic sort of about it, even if it's not fully utilized, kind of like some of these ones kind of always are, where it's just like you got these characters, you got these backstories already. I mean, I've seen the game manuals; it explains it in there,
Well, I mean, there is like some of the action, like even the final battle with Donovan and Pyro, for instance, or Pyron, was still kind of cool, just because there's even like how he's kind of at his last limits, and he goes against the wall, just blood goes everywhere, and he's out of it. Like all the animation looks great, all the action is great. It's just the action is too far in between. Even the battle with him and the samurai dude that has like a mouth where the stomach is. Like
that scene's really cool.
The 35-minute conversation that preceded the fight was a bit much, but the actual action and fighting was really cool and really fun. And I like there is the one guy, he's like, we just need to let him defeat it, then we'll put on the armor, we'll get the power ourselves. Oh no, and then like he just gets Go ahead.
Oh, I just love how there's just that kind of like douchebag kind of con artist guy, or whatever, and then when he gets that armor, he just gets vaporized practically in that thing.
I don't mind the shit heel kind of character if it's something entertaining like that, So just like like I said, like that big fucking gang of rapists, if they all got fucking murdered, I think that would have been really extra funny, just because it's like, I don't know, just if you go that hard, then really go, like if you're going to go like that over the top with it, then just embrace it, I guess. And I guess the whole thing of like, why are we going to present these horrible fucking people, present them like that, and then just have them like just get smacked around out of the way? It's like, no, this is fucking Darkstalkers. It could have been violent as fuck. Come on. We're gonna hold back. We're gonna get the final battle with Donovan violent as fuck. But these assholes, they can't be fodder. I mean, did she kill them or did she just kick their asses? I feel like she just kicked their asses.
She just sort of kicked their asses. Because I will say this thing is definitely done like a total PG-13. Like it's kind of weird because once again, Darkstalkers kind of, it feels like it should be Capcom's kind of like mature rated title. And I think maybe is that if it would have went on. The thing is once again, Darkstalkers doesn't go past Darkstalkers 3. It never leaves the 90s, which is kind of just weird when you sort of think about it, other than like the comic books. like that's it. That's as far as it goes. And if this would have went on, it would have been just like Castlevania. Like Castlevania starts off, it's just an NES game, and the next thing you know, it gets darker and darker and darker until it turns into a mature rated game. I feel Darkstalkers would have kind of fit in that void too. And Darkstalkers almost could have worked in the sense of being sort of maybe it doesn't have to be so, like, I guess, grotesque and violent as, like, maybe Mortal Kombat, because, I mean, that's sort of Mortal Kombat's thing. But, like, Darkstalkers is one of those ones that could kind of use that little bit more over-the-top violence. And I don't think that would have been anywhere out of, in a sense, like Hellsing. It would have been like that. I think that's a perfect way to look at it, like the Hellsing Ultimate kind of style.
I think that would have been a good way to go about it. And I honestly think that if there was a new Darkstalkers game coming out, and chances are it would be good, I would definitely buy it. And then, I also feel like that by this point, I don't know. I feel like that a lot of these companies, they look at the baseline of like how good this thing do last time, and they're afraid to go off of that. And I don't know. I mean, Street Fighter is one of my favorite franchises. So if you had to choose one fighting game or the other, I'm like, all right, Street Fighter. But that said, I wouldn't mind them. Yeah, that said, I wouldn't mind them trying something more different every once in a while, And this is one of those franchises, because I remember the Darkstalkers Street Fighter versus Darkstalkers. The one volume I did read, it was very simple. Mm-hmm. It was very easy. It wasn't really complicated. It wasn't going to change anyone's mind. If like I don't know about the Street Fighter or this Darkstalkers thing, so let me kill two birds with one stone and see how this goes. It's not going to change that person's mind. But if you like it, it's definitely someone who's an avid Street Fighter fan and likes Darkstalkers. Like, this shit's fucking awesome. You get more of it. And I think that I wouldn't mind checking out the Udon stuff. If I could probably find it on Comixology for relatively cheap. Physical, it's probably expensive as fuck. But on Comixology, I could probably find it. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things you could do with it. I honestly think it's a type of series. I think fighting games, other kind of series where just cherry picking weird random characters and putting them together is always an interesting formula for a series. Just focus on those characters and not the fucking drab, dreary ass world around it, because in the game it doesn't look all that drab and dreary. There's some spots that look like that, but you have crazy fucking jungles, you have crazy like things that look like Casinopolis out of fucking Sonic the Hedgehog. It's a really varied world if you look at the backdrops of that game, and yet it's like, we're here in the 15th century shitting in a fucking pit in the fucking ground, and the child has powers, burn it. Like, you sure you don't want to train the child to fucking fight the thing that's killing you? Burn the child. Like, okay.
Yeah, well, it's got that weird thing where it's like, because first I was like, when I'm watching, I'm like trying to point out where is this exactly taking place time wise. I'm kind of summed it up to about maybe like 1930s ish, just by looking at the cars and the vehicles. But there's other parts where it looks like it could be like the 1400s. You know what I mean? Like,
I assumed, so this is what I always assumed. I always assumed Darkstalkers was in its own world. But I think that this is actually meant to be the future. And the concept of like, hey, we're ruled by the night people now, and they blacked out the sun like the fucking Matrix. Yeah. I think that's a cool concept. And then like I do think it's kind of funny, like, hey guys, look, the sun's back. Oh fuck.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, it's like an alien coming to kill us all. Yeah, it's like one of those ones there where it's like, yeah, that's what it means. I think the overall, there's a lot of cool stuff going on. And I think just the Udon comics might be the place where like it really like fills in all these voids, I guess you would almost say. And I think that one's just like, I think it's like a one and done sort of like series of that. I think there's just a big fat graphic novel that contains all of it, and you can just kind of get that of Darkstalkers.
Maybe we should have fucking done that in retrospect, because I was like, yeah,
well, I like to say this, we would have never known. That's the thing, is this would have been just on the back of my mind. And as I said, I'm glad we still watched it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I still enjoyed it enough. It's not like it's one of those ones where it was just like, it's like, definitely made only for like the Darkstalkers fan. Well, I'm not saying you couldn't probably enjoy it if you weren't into that, but it still was kind of a fun just thing to watch and just interesting. It's just, maybe just not as dialed in as could be.
Yeah, and I understand that it came out when Darkstalkers was still somewhat relatively new. So, and to be fair, and not trying to demean the series as a whole, Darkstalkers is somewhat of a flash in the pan and the nostalgia for the people who remember it. That's all it really
Yeah.
is. And I would love to come up with a new Darkstalkers game. I'll gladly pay for, because I want to support those kind of games.
Yeah.
As long as it looked good, as long as the game looked good, like, so yeah, I guess, I don't know. I guess it's just so weird to me that, like, of all the 90s OVA fighting game adaptations, the only one that I really like and just really like is Street Fighter 2. I want to like so many more because I love fighting games. I love the aesthetic of fighting games. I like the character designs of most fighting games. And I think there is so much potential for an interesting story of just tropes that we've seen 1,000 times, whether it be the Seven Samurai trope or whether it be the
Enter the Dragon stuff,
Enter the Dragon style, or just a simple revenge story. There's so many things you can do with an interesting cast of characters from fighting games. Yet all the majority of fighting game OVAs or fighting game animes from the 90s all seem just very of like, well, I mean, it wasn't horrible, but it was whatever, And except for Street Fighter 2. Street Fighter 2, the movie, is fucking awesome, because I feel like, even though, sure, Cammy's only there for a second, and you have a fight between Zangief and Blanca in the background, but I feel like everybody else gets a real moment,
Yeah, I mean, even DJ and all those kind of guys still got stuff there. And I think that's the one that was like the difference between Street Fighter 2 and all the other ones is Street Fighter 2, they dumped some money into that one. They're like, you know what, let's make this good, because that was a full-on movie, theatrical release, all kinds of stuff like that. Where, a lot of these other ones, they are kind of, made straight for, I guess, Japanese TV, because that's what I always picture what the OVA sort of is. It's like it's not exactly, you're not going to go to the theaters to see the Darkstalkers one, but, you're just going to watch it on TV. It's sort of like, it's more than an episode. It's, it's a step up from a series, but it's not yet a full movie yet.
And I dare say, I saw one episode of the Darkstalkers cartoon back when I was a kid. One? The American one. I saw one episode of it as a kid. And
did that appear on like UPN or something?
Something like that, yeah.
See, because
UPN or USA.
Yeah, because I always mostly, it's like one of those ones, because I never saw that show, and mostly it's like one of those ones, it's because I never had UPN, and like a lot of times that carried like the other half of TV.
Yeah, well, here's the thing about it. So I watched, like, in preparing for this, I was looking for as much information on this anime as I could find. And, similar search results led to the cartoon. And I looked at that a little bit. I'm like, oh, God, this shit's rough. That shit you don't realize as a kid. You're just grateful to have something animated that resembles something you recognize, And watching it, the concept could work. It's like, I mean, I don't need the fucking kid. There's a little kid who's apparently like lineage of a wizard, and there's the good Darkstalkers and there's the bad Darkstalkers. So it's kind of like that G.I. Joe kind of thing.
Yeah.
At the same time, I mean, it's not like, I mean, have good writing and you don't need it. The kid doesn't need to be like a 12-year-old boy. Like, oh God, I got this magic ring, and for some reason the succubus and the fucking vampire want to come in, and they're like that kind of shit. Like, because they have the good ones, they have the bad ones. I want to say the good ones. I mean, they'd be the ones that popped in for like maybe one episode or two episodes. Yeah. Maybe the ones that stood around. And I think the good ones were like Felicia, the Merman, the Wolfman. There's more, but I'm sure the Frankenstein. And the bad ones were like Raptor, Morgan, Dimitri, the Mummy. And then they had, I think, characters that just pop in for an episode or two. So, go ahead. Sorry.
It still sounds like, I would say, it still just sounds like an interesting one. It's like one of those ones, like, it's same as like the Street Fighter, the American cartoon. One of these days, I just want to sit down and watch all of them. Just one of those things, just to have the, like, hey, I sat there, I watched it all, I experienced it. And sometimes, like, even those things, even if they are, like, they're not perfect, it's not going to be Street Fighter V, I know that, something like that, but it still might have, like, a weird, like, that nostalgic thing, though I never really watched it as a kid because I just didn't have that channel. It's that sort of thing that, like, it takes you back, you're like, okay, it gives you that old-timey feeling of, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, here's something about, I'll say, compared to the American cartoons compared to this. I guess I expect more from this, and I want to sound like a disappointed dad. Like I was expecting more, son. But at the same time,
son, you're Japanese. You know, I expect a lot more from you. The American kid can slack off. It's okay. It's in his genetics.
That Japanese work discipline. That Japanese work ethic. We need that. No, the thing is, I expect because like the animation looks great, the character design looks great, and the tone is right. It's just the fucking god-awful pacing. That said, it's one of those things, like, I guess since it's, like, closer, I don't know, since it's I just assume, like, you can't say, like, oh, it's a bunch of Americans who don't fucking get it, It's literally, like, they literally speak the same language, so that's why I'm like, guys, come the fuck on, Yeah. That's why I'm able to kind of chuckle and be a little bit more forgiving towards, like, an American thing, because like of course they're gonna fuck it up,
Yeah, so, well, that's just one of those ones. It's just you get a bunch of 40-year-olds and this thing gets slid across your desk like, oh yeah, by Tuesday we need a Darkstalker. It's like, what the fuck's a Darkstalker? you're gonna find out. Here's the video game. Like, oh yeah, I can't play video game. I mean,
well, here's the instruction manual. It's in Japanese. Yeah. I'm not gonna read this shit. This guy looks like a bad guy. Go with that. Like, it's just funny, kind of looking at that kind of thing, and then just trying to figure out, like, saying, like, what was a guy in his 40s with zero interest in video games? What does he look at this? Go like, how can I sell this bullshit to kids? There's just something genuinely fun to look at that and see the connections they make. And then you see something where it looks beautiful, it looks like the game, but it's bad pacing and a bad story, but luckily the few action scenes in it are cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm more forgiving towards the Street Fighter, like, and the Street Fighter the bad Street Fighter cartoon as I am to, say, Street Fighter Alpha, because Street Fighter Alpha is like...
you're following up after two. And I'll say this, I don't hate Alpha. Like, I still, like, enjoy it, and I think that just still comes from the time period where, like, we just didn't have enough choices in life, but it is still off,
Well, it's weird to me. You have the fighting game with, in my personal opinion, the most interesting roster of characters. Mm-hmm. And you have a lot of those characters in the movie, and you advertise the movie with Akuma, which is by, like, I think a fan favorite of a lot of people. You don't see Ryu and Akuma fight. It ends with them, like, trying to kick at each other, and then not only that, the boss of the movie isn't even, like, it's not Sagat, it's not Bison, it's not. Nope. It's no character from the actual game. It's a made-up character for the movie who's a scientist who fucking comes out of nowhere. He's like, I want to be a bad guy, and I studied the Dark Hado through science, and look at what I've become. And then, who's also there? Like, I'm Ryu's little brother. Like, Ryu's got a brother. Oh, yeah. Like, what the fuck? I just want to be like my brother Ryu. Like, what the fuck are you doing here, kid? Why do we... Okay, I'll stop there. My dog's howling, so I did something to set her off.
Well, you know what I think it is? I think even in Japan, there's still that, like, there's people out there go like, dude, it's a fucking video game. It's stupid. It's like, it's not anime, like real art or something. You know what I mean? There's got to be some kind of team that's like, that gets slid across their desk, and they're like, hey, by Tuesday, we want you to have this movie going.
What's a Virtua Fighter? That'd be an interesting one. There's actually a Virtua Fighter anime series. That might be
there is one, and so it has kind of the dub's a little bit kind of funky, but it definitely like one of those. But it's still like it's kind of interesting. I started it, but then I just never got around to finishing it.
I remember just a lot of ads for it because the jerk off Johnny guy, the one that got me into anime. He had Rurouni Kenshin VHSs, and there's always the same, like, 3 ads on there, and one of which was Virtua Fighter. So but Virtua Fighter, and then of course some anime about a school teacher has to take a fucking 16-year-old home and, like, adopt her and basically raise her, and of course she's like, like, oh my god, my fucking clothes fell off.
Yeah, well, one of those kind of ones there. But that was your 3 ads you got, and you're damn grateful because it was the 90s and you just didn't get choices.
It was your door into a world. Like, well, I'm never going to go spend $40 on a VHS at Suncoast for this, so at least I know what this thing's about next time I'm there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those ones. Well, hopefully with Darkstalkers, I kind of like to assume that because this collection came out, the Capcom Fighting one that's literally a half Darkstalkers one, is that I feel like Capcom's sort of doing the thing where it's like they're testing the waters. So like, let's see if people are kind of interested in our alternative fighting games. It's kind of weird that game, I don't know why that collection really has Street Fighter 2 on there. It's like, come on, dude, Street Fighter 2's like on everything.
There's 2 Street Fighter 2s. There's 2 fucking Street Fighter 2s on there.
Is there 2 of them on there?
I think so. I gotta go double check. I mean,
I thought there was just one. Which is like, I mean, like, if for some reason you didn't have a Street Fighter 2, but it's like, dude, you literally, the collection that came out right beforehand was the Street Fighter collection that had 6 Street Fighter 2s on it. You know what I mean? Like, what's going on? Like, I felt like that slot right there could have been, like, there's a lot of other games that could have been in that slot.
I don't want to spread false news, so I want to double check this as we say that. But I don't think you need, okay, if you got to have 1 Street Fighter on there, don't make it be 2. They re-released 2 800 times, and they just had the ultimate Street Fighter collection. If you're going to put any Street Fighter game on this, make it some oddball shit. I don't think they want to bury Street Fighter EX. They don't want
like
people
EX. It's weird. It's like one of those ones like that game. I don't get it. Like, because that game plays fun. I like because literally on EX, I think 2 or 3, like half the roster is a bunch of brand new characters, which is kind of cool. At the end of the day, there's all these characters on EX that like have never appeared in anything else, game wise at least.
I'm wrong. I am wrong. I apologize. No, it's Hyper Street Fighter 2 Anniversary Edition. However, I don't think we need, if you were going to have Street Fighter 2 on there, I mean, I feel like just throw like a weird one, like throw like Alpha 1 or Alpha 2 or like Street Fighter, not Third Strike, but just the original Street Fighter.
Yeah, because you never see the other Third Strikes anymore.
You never see the other Street Fighter. I mean, they're on the other collection, but you have to go look.
Oh, I guess that is true. Yeah, they're on there. Yeah, well, it's one of those ones because it's like everything else on there is kind of interesting. I mean, like Pocket Fire, or not Pocket Fire. It's cool that Pocket Fire's on there because that hasn't been like re-released, I think, since like, I don't think it's ever been re-released. I think I just had it on PlayStation 1. And then, I mean, Puzzle Fighter, don't get me wrong, I love that game. I do have it kind of multiple times over because you can still buy it separately. So it's like, that was one of those ones where it's like, I guess that could have been something else, but whatever. That's still a great game. Can't complain. You know what I mean? Next.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Next, that would be really fun to see is if they put out the 3D game collections where it had like Rival Schools, Project Justice, you know, things like, God, drawing blank on the one that's got the dude with the lightsaber in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, his game.
I know who you're talking about, but I forgot his name.
Yeah, Power Stones, like, you know what I mean? Like all those kind of games.
Yeah, now you're saying this, I'm getting a little bit more mad because I was so looking forward to Capcom Fighting Collection. I knew it was going to have everything. I knew the games were going to be on there. But now you're saying that aloud. I'm like, where the fuck is Rival Schools? Where's Project Justice?
Well, see, I feel the 3Ds are sort of savored. Yeah.
It's the sprite thing, but still, it's don't act like the technology's not there. It's fucking there. We can get it could fit on there, you know. Maybe that's gonna be another collection, but God, I'd much rather have Rival Schools or Power Stone than like Street Fighter 2 Turbo whatever the fuck for the 800th
one more time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We already have Street Fighter the final champion, Street Fighter 2 Final Challengers Edition as an opener for Switch. I don't need another Street Fighter 2 after that.
Yeah, it's one of those ones like, yeah, I felt like that one space. I can't complain about all the other ones on there. I mean, like, I know it's like one of those ones, the Darkstalkers makes you feel like you're getting more, but then you just kind of realize the last 2 versions on there, they're just like slight variations of like 3 or whatever, but like kind of different rosters. But it's one of those ones like, yeah, it's this weird one is that there's a weird kind of like, I don't know if there's like a kind of like people are either sort of afraid or there's kind of a hatred towards that early generation of 3D, like, because we just don't see a whole lot of re-releases of like that kind of PlayStation into Dreamcast PS2 kind of era. Maybe, well, PS2 sort of, but like that kind of into it era where it's like give or take 95 to like 2001, 2002. Like it feels like that era just people don't like to touch that as often. Like they're afraid, like, oh, maybe the games don't hold up to. And I think the thing is, it's going to hold up to the retro gamer, but I think they're afraid that like the modern gamer who doesn't know any better is going to look at these games and go, oh, they're just clunky and broken. What's wrong with them?
Well, the thing is, they act as if kind of like, how do I put it? I don't feel like the modern gamer. Well, we say the modern gamer and the retro gamer are, in all honesty, the same fucking thing. It's just kind of like, I feel like there's people who just didn't grow up with it. If they didn't grow up with it, they probably wouldn't be interested in buying it in the first place. So maybe maybe they buy it cheaply and check it out. But at the same time, it's like I feel like they could make their money. They could make a profit off just selling old-ass games like this if they just knew. I mean, I guarantee you, if Darkstalkers 4 came out, it wouldn't sell like fucking Elden Ring or like the next Mass Effect, but it would do good. It would do good.
I mean, you could still. I mean, like perfect examples. Like it's like King of Fighters. King of Fighters always kind of comes out, and it's never. It's one of those ones. It's never going to be the biggest one. It's always going to be probably on like the end of like a top 10 list of fighting games, but they still continuously come out. They still always have the fans. There's still enough money to be made and enough like stuff to be kind of had there. I think that's the thing is like, it's one of those ones like I think Capcom used to just release games like all the time. And then now it's like they're at that point where it's like, we only release like 5 games. You know what I mean? And be fucking grateful for what you get.
Yeah, it's kind of like every few years, a Street Fighter, and then we're going to milk the fuck out of it with DLC.
Yeah.
A Resident Evil remake. And then a new Resident Evil, and then
maybe you'll get like a Devil May Cry. Maybe you'll get one of these other ones, but that's about it. Where like I just picture like the Dreamcast days, dude. In like 3 years of Dreamcast, there's probably like 50 plus Capcom games on there. Now, granted, I know some of them are kind of repackaged ones from like the PlayStation 1, Sega Saturn era, but let's still at the end of the day. There's like a crap ton of games all in like a 3-year span right there. It's like, what happened to those days?
I want a fucking Power Stone. I'm sorry. Maybe it's a combination of just talking about Capcom, and then I'm not gonna lie, this hit me a little harder than expected. Fuck, I'm getting sad because I'm missing Power Stone. I'm really missing Power Stone.
Do you still have your PSP?
I do have my PSP. I should probably look and see if is there a Power Stone game for the PSP.
There's a Power Stone Collection 1 and 2 on PSP. It's got both of them.
Fuck, I gotta get that. Maybe it's available. No, it's not available on Steam. I already checked. No.
No,
it's similar to Power Stone. Like no,
not similar. I have it on my Vita, but I don't think you can go in the store on regular PSP anymore for digital stuff.
No, not for that.
Because the nice thing about the Vita is like all those games like that, they're all like $10 or less. They like don't cost anything.
Well, for a while, my PSP, and I don't want to go on this too long because people are going to be like, all right, Nate, it's getting too personal. But for a while, the PSP was just basically the Street Fighter Alpha 3 machine and the Darkstalkers machine. That's all it kind of was for a while.
Yeah.
And now I got those on Switch now. So I'm like, sorry, PSP. But now I'm like, oh, now you're the Power Stone machine. Okay, cool.
Well, it's weird. PSP was one of the best systems for like classic fighting game collections back in the day. You don't think about it too much, but it's like that system had so many great, because like that Street Fighter Alpha 3 on PSP is almost kind of the best version of it because it has the most characters out of any one.
As someone who has the Street Fighter like 30th anniversary collection, which is still worth owning, and still like I'm glad I have it. I play that game a lot. Even though I don't pull it out too often, I still prefer the Alpha 3 version because something about it just felt a little smoother. Something about it just had a few more characters and bells and whistles. However, just only second to the Dreamcast version of that game.
Yes, the Dreamcast one's also. See, that's where I kind of wish when they made that. It's like they always want to put just the arcade games. I almost kind of wish they'd put some of the other versions of them on there, because I think there's like that Ninja Turtles collection that's coming out later. And I think one of the coolest things about that Ninja Turtles collection is they put all the various versions on there, which mostly no collections ever seem to do, where it's like, here's the Genesis version, here's the Super Nintendo version, here's the NES version, all of the same game. Because, the average person's just like, isn't it the same game? And it's like, no. There's actually just different nuances to each one. And that's what's cool about having them.
I didn't know that. I just thought it was going to be kind of like one or two versions, like one version of the cat. Okay, now I'm really looking forward to the album collection.
Yeah, that's what made me really excited about. I'm like, finally somebody has done those collections like totally right. Because like the thing too is like, That one just like, here's everything. Even if maybe some of these games aren't as good as you remember, here's all of them. We're just gonna give them to you. And I think that's like the way to do it, because a collection should be like, it's not just the best games, it should be all the games. Like, that's how I always feel it is. Like, hey, I know maybe this game didn't get the greatest reviews, but the whole point of having a collection is you can try it out, and hey, here it is now.
We're well done with Darkstalkers by now. So for folks who I only want to hear about the Darkstalkers anime, we probably tune off by this point. So let me ask you this, because both of us, one of our favorite games is Street Fighter, and we didn't even talk about on air at least about Street Fighter 6 and the reveal. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
I mean, we could, as I said, that kind of came there and so on. And no matter what, like, I'm kind of I'm always excited. If there's a new Street Fighter, I mean, I'm gonna get it and so on like that. I don't know if this one's exclusive to PS5. Like
it's not.
The last one.
I originally heard it was going to be. Then I heard it's not going to be exclusive.
Okay, well, because all this information appeared at like the PlayStation convention, and then I was like, I wonder if that's going to be the case. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, I would literally go out and buy a PS5 just for that. But I mean, like, because at the end of the day, it's like I'll play a new Street Fighter. But it is interesting how they're incorporating like the beat 'em up elements, which makes you give it that feeling of like the old school, like it has like the final fight thing to it as well too.
Well, here's my question, because it's still too vague. I mean, they already apparently leaked, in air quotes, brought out all the like starting roster, which it's a varied roster. There's a lot of classic characters, and then there's a couple new characters on there too. Yeah. I'm kind of wonder. So there's that. But here, the thing that has me wondering is, I don't think it's going to be a beat 'em up like side game thing. Maybe it will be. I think that's going to be kind of like this open hub world for the online play, and they're making something that harkens back to Final Fight, because Street Fighter and Final Fight take place in the same universe. So yeah, I can see them doing something where that's just the open hub world, and then you bump into people and you can challenge each other. Which, yeah, no, that could be cool.
I definitely think it's something where it's like it's definitely incorporated. It's like, it's definitely a fighting game first and foremost, but I think it will have sort of a little bit of an adventure aspect to it. But it's probably what it is. Probably for like the last couple of years, everybody's like, dude, where the fuck is our story mode and everything like that? They're like, you know what? Fuck it. They're just if we don't put the story mode in there right off the bat, they're gonna bitch the living daylights out of us again.
Here's another question though. Do you think I could see it being something to the effect of like, you start off in this little area, and then once you get enough ranking, or once you do good enough, you're on to the next area. The kind of, I know that's a standard video game thing, but I'm thinking of a hub world thing, because they're trying to do this whole thing about being a Street Fighter, you get street cred and this and that. There's probably a story intertwined, but once you actually get enough you get a certain ranking within like the social aspect, you're able to go on to this next area, which gives you, I don't know, just build your way up. I think that could be interesting. Now, let me ask you this, and this is coming from, I know that this is a flawed perspective. I know it's a flawed perspective. But remember when Street Fighter 3 came out? Well, I actually probably jumped on it a little later. But when Street Fighter 3 came out, there was like the only returning characters, and it's only returning characters by Third Strike, which is the final version. You had Ryu, Ken, Chun-Li, and Akuma, and everybody else was brand new.
Yep.
And you had this total like, who the fuck are these assholes coming in here? You think you could take the place of Blanca? You think you could take the place of Daz Lim? You can't even take the place of fucking T-Hawk. Get the fuck out of here. You kind of have,
and they didn't even have, Chun-Li wasn't even the original one. She didn't come until Third Strike.
Third Strike, yeah. So and now it's funny, because now this time's gone on, Third Strike is one of my favorite games. And Ibuki, Yoon, Yang, even Oro little bit. Alex is one of my favorite characters. So, and I'm not much of a grappler or a wrestling guy, but Alex is one of my favorite characters. So now I'm kind of like, I was wrong. I love Street Fighter 3. I love Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. It's one of my favorite games. Yeah. And now I look back, even Makoto even. And now I see them. I have not got the most recent DLC for Street Fighter 5. but now they're trying to make Luke, who apparently appeared in one of the DLCs for Street Fighter 5. They're trying to make him more one of the main characters now. And there's that opening monologue where he's all like, out here, it's not just a game. You just don't win it. This fight never ends. I'm like, shut the fuck up. You're not Ryu. You're not Guile. You're not even E Honda. Shut the fuck up. Don't explain Street Fighter to me. You know, like if it's Ryu.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, no, tell me more wisdom. But like, I can't help but get the sense like, who the fuck are you? Tell me what Street Fighter. You just got here, motherfucker.
Yeah, that's like, well, it's literally like he's almost like he's talking down to you, like be like, dude, I've been here longer than you have. Don't you dare tell me that.
I kind of felt like he was. And like, you just got on the DLC pack, bitch. You haven't been here that fucking long. Don't fucking explain to me how fucking Street Fighter works. I'm not good at Street Fighter, but don't fucking tell me how it fucking works. You just got here. Those kind of things. You're like the fucking, you're the guy who you've been here for 2 weeks and you're already been appointed supervisor. Like, why the fuck are you the supervisor, dude? If anybody should be supervisor, it's Dazlin. He has been working his fucking ass off. Fuck T-Hawk. T-Hawk has been here from the beginning and never gets any fucking respect.
Yeah, he's the original DLC character.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those ones. And it's not that, like, because I actually appreciate when there's new characters and being able to try that out. Like, I know some people, like, they almost just want all originals and they could almost care less about the new characters. Like, I still can appreciate it. And that goes back to, like, when I say, like, that Street Fighter EX, there's literally a crap ton of just, like, totally original characters for that game and that game alone, which I think is just kind of interesting. You know what I mean? Never been used in any other Street Fighter game. I mean, like half the roster is that. So there's like 12 characters that are not in any other Street Fighter game.
There's like, I got to look that up because I had EX3 before my house was robbed one time. So I don't remember who they all were. There was like a Day of the Dead man and there was a Bikini Assassin. That's the only two characters I fucking remember that weren't like legacy Street Fighter characters. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just one of the ones. It's just interesting that there is all these ones there. But as I said, I think Street Fighter 6 is going to be, like, no matter what, it's going to be pretty cool. I mean, Street Fighter generally, you know, doesn't disappoint. I mean, it'd be better if it was in 2D, but I mean, I still like Street Fighter 6 or 5 quite a bit. Like, I was still pretty darn impressed with that overall. It plays smooth. It fixes some old characters that kind of needed some tweaking. You know what I mean? Overall, I really dug that game quite a bit. All I hope is that the games finally figure out the load time issues, because that was the downfall of like the PS4, like Xbox One era. It's like, God, like those games, the load times on fighting games was just like, it took like 45 seconds for like matches to load and so on like that. And it's one of those ones that's funny. Like I go back and play like an Xbox original game, like Dead or Alive, like 2 or 3 on there or something like that. Those games load in like a second.
Yeah.
Like there literally is like no load time. It's like, what the hell? It's like one of those ones. That's always how it is. I remember like it started off when load times first came in at like PlayStation 1 and so on like that. It was like, oh, okay, you know what? By PS2, that problem, it's going to go away. It's going to be awesome. And then it was like, okay, PS2 comes out, GameCube, Xbox, load times aren't that bad. Then it like starts then load times creep back in again, and then they like, okay, we got it fixed again. It's promised it's never gonna happen like this again. And then it's like, and then once again those load times keep creeping back in.
Yeah, they keep doing that. I mean, I guess I don't know enough about the programming or coding or anything like that. Like, well, I guess the characters do look like they have an extra shade of shadowing, but at the same time, like, yeah, it is. Those load times do take a minute, but
yeah, it's just here. Like Street Fighter is just like one of those. There's a handful of. It's like a lot of those PS4 fighting games. It's just like, yeah, it's just like I feel like a fighting game needs to be like jiffy on the spot. I mean, I don't mind. I get it. Like, there's got to be some form of load time, but like, yeah, it's just like.
Yeah, I was gonna say, no, you're right about the load time thing. It is kind of like because you're just so amped, you just want to fucking go, and then it just like, give us a minute. You know, it's like 3, 2.
Yeah, you're sitting there, you're like, oh, come on. It's just like, as I said, you just kind of hate it when you pop in an old game. It's like, this old game loads in 2 seconds. What the hell's wrong with you guys?
As far as like characters. Did you see the returning roster? Because they officially, apparently, air quotes officially, only revealed 4 characters, but the roster snuck out and they showed the starting base characters. Did you see that by chance?
No, I only saw the video. I didn't see anything past that.
Who are give me 3 characters you'd like to return that are not as likely you'd think, and I'll let you know if they're on the starting roster.
Okay, how about Alex?
Alex is not on the starting roster. I'd like him to return too.
He's not on the starting roster. Is it
There's a character that looks like a character that might be a spiritual successor to Alex. I don't know. She's apparently a Roman, a giant buff Roman lady, apparently. But
that's kind of cool.
That could be cool. I'd rather have Alex though. I'd rather have Alex not to be that guy.
I feel like he just doesn't have enough screen time yet.
Everybody wants to play. I maybe there's a couple out there. I think everyone rather plays Guile than Remy. I mean, I love Third Strike, but let's not lie. Everyone likes Guile more than Remy at the end of the day. But yeah, I'd love Alex to return. There might be a spiritual successor to him called Marissa. Who else?
Is Sea Viper returning? I kind of hope not, but
no, I don't see her on here.
But that character, they pushed that character so hard down our throats, and it's like nobody wanted her.
You know what? If they brought her back and made some kind of redemption thing of her, if she, I never really gave her a chance because she was just so focused in,
Yeah.
So, and I like redheads with glasses, obviously, but at the same time, it's one of those things no, I think she was just forced down our throats too much.
Yeah, that's the thing. I feel that character could come back, but it's just one of those. At the time when Street Fighter 4 was, it made you well, I'm not playing as that character. I'll tell you that.
Don't make her look like a naughty librarian. Do the old man Logan thing. I've seen some shit, and she comes back. It's oh wow, this chick's badass. Okay,
don't give her the hip. It felt like she was trying to appeal to the hipster audience. It was market says that the hipsters started playing video games. How can we get them in there?
She's just the girl boss.
Yeah, it's no, yeah. Let's see. Let's go with some older characters. Is he Honda coming back? Because that's always one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, let me look here. It looks like anybody who's not a villain from Street Fighter 2 is back in this, with the exception of T-Hawk.
Poor T-Hawk.
Just throw T-Hawk on that list, just for the fuck of it,
Yeah, exactly. Just be you know what? Let's get these Native Americans out of here. You know what I mean? Okay, what about Saddam? Is he in there? I'm just gonna throw out random characters.
Saddam?
The guy with
Sagat.
No, not Sagat. The guy with from Street Fighter Alpha and Street Fighter 1, with the size.
Oh, right. He's a boss in Final Fight. No, he's not in it.
Okay, he's not in it. Let's see. What other random ass characters can I think of? But you said there's no bosses. There's no M. Bison, no Sagat, no Vega, no Balrog.
Well, at the end of let's see here. At the end of whatchamacallit, at the end of Street Fighter 5, Shadow Lu is destroyed, and it leads into Street Fighter 3. This is the next game that is the next. It leads into the official this is the official newest Street Fighter game, because for a while Street Fighter 3 was at the end of the timeline. Now it's this.
So yeah.
This there is no. I imagine Sagat and Vega and Balrog will become downloadable characters down the time, but no, they're not in it yet. I imagine Ed, that little Aryan blonde, the little Aryan Shadowloo kid that Balrog's I like this little white boy. I imagine that guy. I imagine that because that was just such a weird thing. Balrog, you look like you're hanging out with a Hitler Youth. He's kind of cool. I don't know what about that, but I imagine he's gonna play kind of like Bison, is what I imagine, sort of.
Oh, that'll be interesting. Yeah, well, it just seems like there's at least still going to be kind of an interesting roster of characters no matter what. As I said, I kind of look forward to see whatever the new characters are. I'm always down for trying out new stuff.
I like Ibuki or Makoto to be in there. I know those are characters.
Ibuki, I would.
Alex.
Ibuki's one of those kind of characters I almost kind of guarantee she'll be in there, even if she just comes as a DLC character, because she's almost became she's the most famous character of Street Fighter 3, I guess.
Just to piss people off, let's bring back Abel.
Yeah. Urine.
Well, he might be. He might be. Well, the thing, is his name literally? I don't remember how to pronounce it.
I don't know. It's probably pronounced differently than that, but it's just like when you look at it, it just looks like it says urine.
No, because Gil was like the proper suit button up. Like, I am a god amongst men, but it's important to look the part and look at me. I'm like half blue, half red, and who's gonna deny I'm a god? Like, yeah, no, I get it. And Yora's like, what about me, brother? Like, oh, Jesus Christ, my fucking ears are bleeding, dude. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. Go back, put some clothes on. Jesus.
Maybe when your maybe if mom and dad would have loved you if they didn't name you, like, if they named you Urine. What does that tell you, dude?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, I mean, I think overall, I kind of do just hope that game kind of just delivers well. I don't see why it wouldn't. I hope it just doesn't have the kind of the issues. I felt like the last two Street Fighter games, like they had to sort of fix those games as they kind of went on, and like they started off like a kind of a rough, not bad, but like there's just missing elements is kind of what there kind of was. Because that was like how Street Fighter V was. It's like it played great, but it just didn't have a whole lot of characters, had no story mode, had no bells and whistles. It was just kind of like literally like having the arcade one. I mean, I know for a fact Street Fighter's never going to stop the tradition of just continuously releasing more and more content. I mean, they've literally been doing it since Street Fighter 2. Like, let's be honest. Capcom's milked the DLC before DLC was even something.
Yeah, and I think they learned their lessons from Street Fighter V, just from the blowback, because that was bullshit to charge $60 for a full game and have a legacy franchise such as Street Fighter. It's not a game where it's like, hey, it's an indie title that's just on its second installment. No, it's Street Fighter. It fucking changed the video game landscape. This thing should be treated as such, not like a little fucking DLC bonus pack thing. So I think they've learned their lesson. I think they're gonna have like a story mode or just something to go along. Because that's why I waited on Street Fighter V. Once I actually got the finalized version of the game, it's fucking awesome. But I could not imagine.
Still wasn't the finalized. They still kept releasing stuff after that version. I loved.
But there's enough there to keep me going. Yeah. Where before, if I bought that thing day one, I'm like, what the fuck is this? No, you don't add story mode retroactively, or even standard arcade mode retroactively. You fuck it. Yeah. It's all been said. But yeah. Darkstalkers movie. Didn't like it as much as I hoped I would. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it's still worth watching. There's you go check it out on. There's some nice people that put it up on YouTube. But also, if you want a pristine version, I think they just released like a 4K Blu-ray version of the Darkstalkers OVA just like recently in the last month or so. So you can get a real high-end version of it. Probably doesn't have any special features. Actually, that's something that kind of bummed me out about the new Capcom collection. I was bummed that there was no special features because that was almost one of the coolest things about the anniversary for Street Fighter is that they had that big section where it just had all this stuff you could sit there and read for a while of like the history and behind the scenes and all kinds of stuff like that. It's like
in the character art, but that's about it.
That's it. Yeah, there's no history though. It's just there's just character. There's just a gallery section, which I mean that's cool too, but. The one on the anniversary Street Fighter one was actually pretty awesome. I remember I felt like I sat there for a couple hours just like going through all those games and they had the timeline and all that stuff. I was really hoping that was going to be on this one. And that's about my only kind of bummer complaint to it, other than the fact that for some reason it has an extra copy of Street Fighter 2 that not saying you can't use it. Yeah, but it could have been anything else, I guess.
I guess the thing is it could have been like it's Street Fighter. So, I mean, Street Fighter is their flagship as far as fighting games go. I'm going to say Street Fighter, other than Mega Man, is their flagship franchise.
Yeah, so, well, I'd say nowadays, because Mega Man's definitely not the flagship anymore. Yeah, Mega Man sort of fell off the boat at one point.
Yeah.
It was the flagship franchise, and then it got demoted.
He's kind of like there's the Lifeboat, which like Devil May Cry is on. Like, hey guys, we're right behind. There's the SS Capcom.
Yeah.
And then there's, it's filled to the brim with Resident Evil and Street Fighter characters. And then maybe things they just help produce, but then hardly had a hand in creating. And then there's like a rope where the people in the lifeboat are like, wait. And on that, there is Devil May Cry characters all overflowing, like shit. And then
any moment now, the rope's gonna get cut on us.
Exactly. And then there's like Mega Man, which not enough room for him on the lifeboat. So he's in a lifesaver, kind of attached to the lifeboat. Like, guys, just wait for me. And then swimming behind is Power Stone and Darkstalkers and fucking Red Earth is dead. You know, they drowned some time back. You know, this is in memoriam of.
Yeah, that's even Power Stone. I feel like all those ones, like that rope got cut like a long time ago, and we'll just be lucky if we just get a collection. I feel like that would be kind of it. You know what I mean? Like,
get a collection and just have like the one, like just Capcom just do what Sega did with some of their stuff, which is just like licenses it out. Let people make a badass thing, and it suddenly get revived. I mean, Sonic the Hedgehog never really died, but it fluctuated in quality. But it really, Sonic Mania and Streets of Rage 4, really fuck, dude, right on.
Yeah, I mean, even House of the Dead remake and Panzer Dragoon remake. Like, I mean, Sega's actually ironically been kind of knocking it out like I'm like the small kind of game path. Yeah.
Sonic Frontiers, we'll find out. We'll see what happens. But you hope for the best. Yeah. Anyway, it seems like a place to leave off at.
I think so. But yeah, beyond all that good stuff, you can check Old Man Orange podcast out at oldmanorange.com. More podcasts, comic books like Pizza Boys, old animations, and all that other fun stuff. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
And we'll see you some other time.
Later, folks.